Hey, what's up, guys, and welcome to yet another episode of Real Talk TV. As always, I'm your host, Lionel Wright, aka the Black Hawaiian. Oh, I said it correctly this time. And guys, this is actually part 2 of our interview with one of my most favorite guys, and I'm so happy and excited and privileged to have this guy, T.Jay Thompson. How's it going, T.J.?
Great, good to be here.
All right, man. So, thank you so much for coming in and spending a lot of time with us. And, I just got to say, on the first segment, we covered a lot of great things, and we did what Real Talk TV wants to do. We talked about, where you're born and raised and all of this good stuff. And then we started kind of going on and talking about the fights and everything and all the different promotions that you've done, or not all of them, but like the beginning, going from Gussie Lamore's, into Super Brawl. And I wanted to touch touch up on what are some of the jobs that you've done, along the way before you, ended up really getting into the whole promotion thing?
Well, again, I talk about it a lot. I feel like a lot of the best things that happened in my life have happened by mistake. Mm-hmm. Some people may call it divine intervention. I happen to just think I'm just fell into some stuff. I was 14 years old and had to get a job in a summer. And I got a job at, there was a Danton's restaurant in Old Orchard Beach, Maine as a dishwasher. And I worked about 4.5 hours as my first shift, and I walked out. This sucks. I don't want to do this. And I walked. I knew I was going to get in trouble. I couldn't go home and say I didn't have a job. So I walked from there down the street. Old Orchard Beach, Maine is this like little carnival town almost. Mm-hmm. And I walked over to the carnival side and said, do you have any job openings? And what they had was a barker, a carnival barker. So that afternoon, I was, step right up. You too can be a winner. I'm 14 years old. Yeah. And it's interesting. I did that summer, and I think got some of my promotion in me early on. But then that winter, I got a job at the local ski area where I love to ski. Wow. And I skied. The following summer, I got a job at a golf course because I liked golfing, and I could golf for free. Wow. It got really clear to me that I didn't want to work for a living. And if I found something I enjoyed doing, it would make my life much easier. And as I was in college, I ended up getting a job with IBM that I worked for about 1.5 years because I thought that's what you were supposed to do, and quickly found out that I don't belong in the workforce of America. And I don't mind sharing with my children the same thing, that it's more important if you're going to be spending many hours of your life, a third of your life possibly working, it's much better to do something you love and not make a lot of money than do something that you hate and make a great living. I don't want to live that way, and I don't understand why anyone else would.
It's funny that you say that and you bring that up, because I myself kind of went through the same thing. When I was younger, it was all about getting a good job. Yeah. So I actually, a lot of people don't know this, but I was in the health care field for a while. Yeah. I was working as a lab tech, dialysis, and all of this stuff. And I made good money. I worked 2 jobs. I even worked as a city bus driver for a while. Yep. And I thought that that's where I was supposed to be. I thought that that's what you need to do, is go out there, make a good living. I hated the job, but I made good money. Nowadays, I just kind of said, hey, you know what, and which I teach to my kids as well, is that I would rather be happy, and make just enough money to pay the bills than not happy and making Absolutely. Good money. So, I appreciate that. And that makes me understand more that you have that entrepreneur spirit.
Right.
And which is so funny is that you mentioned earlier about the whole barker thing. And I had said the term barker because right. that's what I think you are. Like when I saw you promoting your shows, you were the guy that would sell it.
Well, our job is to sell fights. Yeah. Our job is to tell the story. Again, two men, 2 women inside a ring or a cage fighting each other is compelling, but there's so much more to it than that. I wanted fans to take ownership. Whose side are you on? Was a promotion I had. I think we had Robbie versus Nico Vitale, and the entire marketing campaign was whose side are you on? And at the time, Robbie became very popular in Hawaii, but we put him up against one of the most popular fighters of all time in Hawaii. And it just made sense. Whose side are you on? And there were local boys that were very torn and maybe took the side of Robbie Lawler. So I think it's important to make people pick sides, make people get a vested interest in these fighters. if I were to run a promotion today, which I have very little interest in doing, I think that's what's missing today, is we need to tell the story of these fighters. And again, this is on a very low budget. We would create half-hour TV shows, the Icon Sport preview shows.
Yeah, well, and that's what I liked about you, is that besides being the Barker guy, you built the backstories. You built the story of why you should be vested in this fighter, or why you should want to follow this guy.
And most of it was true.
That's great. And so, some of the fighters that you started building back then still compete until today. And we'll talk about that list in a little bit. But so what I wanted to get into real quick with you is, we had discussed about how, after a while of doing these, I think it was Icon at the time, that you started getting some legal troubles as far as like with the state.
Well, yeah,
and the sanctioning.
The name went from Super Brawl, Future Brawl in the bar, Super Brawl, and then I never really felt like that name fit the product, and we moved it to Icon Sport as just a kind of a brand, a brand revamp. But as it was Super Brawl, there was a law written. She was a Maui politician. Forget her name. She's still involved.
Yeah,
but she had a law written that basically said ultimate fighting and extreme fighting is banned. And we were at the time the Hawaii Extreme Fighting Championship, Super Brawl. But as we read through the law, it said this law in no way will affect professional wrestling, boxing, or a legitimate martial arts contest. At that point, we became the Hawaiian Pancration Championships, and we used the Pancration rules dating back to 300 BC to the
Romans and
the Olympiad,
yeah.
and we were a legitimate martial arts contest, and they came and watched us very closely, and they were actually rewriting the law to get rid of that loophole.
Yeah.
But we became so popular so fast with politicians buying tickets to the fights. That they decided not to follow through on it. So there's still a law on the books outlawing ultimate and extreme fighting in Hawaii.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So, so it was the sport was banned, right?
It was absolutely
outright banned. So how long was that ban?
Again, our stance was that it was never banned legally because there was this loophole that we had. But I think we took almost a full year off. We average about 3 to 4 shows a year. I never kind of wanted to oversaturate, which we can talk about today's environment, but didn't want to oversaturate the environment. But I think we took possibly almost a full year off of doing shows in Hawaii.
Wow.
At the time, I think I did shows in Guam and Texas.
Yes, I remember hearing you moving and doing other things during that time. Wow, so the whole year off, and then so now you guys get back, and the sanctioning goes through. And I remember, really watching part of that process of how everything was going on. I remember you guys going in.
Oh, when the Boxing Commission came in, that was much later. But I was always, people were up in arms about a commission coming in, but I was always in favor of regulation. Safety, again, is the most important thing for these athletes. My job as a promoter isn't to keep the athletes safe. My job as a promoter is to sell tickets.
Yeah.
So as much, I think, fortunately, I had very close ties with the fighters. So I think I probably did a better job than most.
Yeah.
As time went on, but it doesn't necessarily. The onus wasn't on me to do that. The onus was to make sure I got butts in the seats because I needed to feed my family.
Yeah.
So I thought it was important for that to come in. I'll tell you a quick story on safety in MMA without regulation. This would have been. I think it was Super Brawl 1. If anybody remembers J.R. Palmer's stomp of Mauricio Corti.
Yes.
When he held his hand, he was on the ground and stomped on his head like 4 times.
Yeah.
He was unconscious for at least 3 or 4 minutes.
It was
like
a while.
absolutely unconscious. Well, it was actually Super Brawl 1. When I was at Gussie Lamore's, we used to have no medicals, no EMTs, no ambulances, nothing. But there was this doctor that I think had a drinking problem that would come and sit at the bar, and we would say he was our doctor, but he was, just a mess. And when I went to do Super Brawl, he wanted to be my doctor. And I'm like, there's no way. So what I did, like the true promoter I was, I just ignored him. Like I wouldn't take his phone calls. And this is a guy that saved us. The news would come out and say, this is our doctor. So he was really good to us in his own way. And I just ignored him. So I get a doctor through somebody else, and Mauricio Cordy gets stomped unconscious. It looks like he maybe broke his neck, and I look over to find the doctor, and he's gone. Unbeknownst to me, 2 fights before, he got a page that he had to go to the hospital.
Oh, wow.
So I have no doctor, we have no EMTs, we have no ambulance, and I got a guy in the ring that looks critically hurt at the time. And 30 seconds passes by, 60 seconds passes by. I'm saying, what are we gonna do? Out of like the 9th row comes this Gussie Lamore's doctor that bought his own freaking ticket to the show.
Oh my
and
goodness.
came in and took care of this guy. Never felt like more of a jerk in my life. I think I gave him free tickets like for the next 10 shows. Didn't hire him as my doctor because he wasn't that great.
Yeah.
But again, those were the days when we weren't being watched.
Yeah.
And I wasn't doing a good enough job to keep the fighters safe.
Uh-huh.
So I think 10, 12 years down the road, the commission comes in and everyone's up in arms. If it's done correctly, the commission's job is supposed to be fighter safety first.
Yeah.
I don't always agree with decisions they make.
Yeah.
I've worked with California athletic commissions, Las Vegas athletic commissions, Texas, Guam, and Hawaii. They all have pluses and minuses, and they all could do a better job. But I think it's imperative that there are people overlooking promoters.
Oh yeah, no,
Imperative.
Definitely. Yeah, no, definitely. And you know, like I remember that stomping that you're talking about, man. That was crazy. And that was a good show. And I remember, the kid was unconscious for a while.
Yeah, it was a good 3 or 4 minutes. It was
Yeah.
a scary, scary time.
Yeah, I remember just being in the crowd. I was like, oh wow, what's going to happen? And I remember the doctor jumping in, and then boom, everything went. And I mean, that was great.
Well, and I'll go back a year from then, maybe less than a year. Gussie Lamore's. This was Llewellyn Po'omai Healani, one of the first Hawaiian names I ever learned. Llewellyn was from the West Side and ended up taking his own life just a year or so after this story.
Wow.
He fought a guy in military pants, and he did the same thing, stomped this guy unconscious, and they literally dragged him out back because the club owner at the time just didn't want that being seen. So instead of like letting him come to, they drag him out back. And this was sometime later in the night, and it was his first fight of the night, so he didn't get paid. And sometime after the show, I see this poor guy, his head's like this, and he's sitting in the corner nursing a beer. And I thought to myself, that poor son of a bitch had to buy his own beer. So, as people talk about my heart, at that time, the contract was you fought your first fight, you got $100 if you won, nothing if you lost. From that point on, and I wish you had, like I said, I don't save enough stuff if I had a copy of the contract. I added in, if you lost your first fight, you got a beer.
Wow.
So don't ever say I don't take good care of my fighters.
Oh, that was awesome. At least you get a beer out of the first loss. Okay, so we talked a whole lot about you and promotion. Okay.
Yes.
But you've done a lot more than promoting, and I kind of wanted to cover that. Can you go over with us some of the other things that you've done? Because like we mentioned earlier, you were a fight promoter. But besides that, you did other things, and also with promoting the show, like you had your own radio show.
Well, we had a radio show going. We created a TV show, and it was all kind of to help our brand.
Yeah.
I also, as I said, became a martial artist. I've fought twice, and I'm probably not the only one. But
I remember you fighting once.
Yes, I'll tell the first story that many people don't know. But I'm one of the few that actually I'm finished my career with a perfect record. I'm 0-2.
Yeah, I would say.
So I finished my career defeated. So I'm definitely a better promoter than I am a fighter.
Well,
My very first fight, I had been training with Egan, I don't know how long, but I just started working my stand-up, and all his young fighters were fighting. We went over to Maui, and I went over with them, and somebody fell out, and Egan said, hey, do you want to jump in, like a half hour before the fight? And I'm in my very early 30s, which is young for us now.
Yeah.
And I said, let's do it. And I'd been working on my stand-up, and Ben Santiago was this kid's name, if anyone knows him.
Yeah, Ben.
Really good striker.
Yeah.
And I could hear him hitting the pads in the next room, like, holy crap, it's kicking in. But Egan brought us up to basically be grapplers that learned how to strike. And I thought to myself, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go out and I'm going to work my stand-up. And if I get in trouble, I'll take the guy down and I'll be fine.
Yeah.
Well, I go out and we circle, and I think I throw a couple of horrible jabs. And he lands a 1-2 that drops me like a sack of potatoes out. And again, you want to talk about safety, and back in the old days, the good old days, I'm unconscious, 3 or 4 seconds, and you watch a video. I don't remember any of this. But 3 or 4 seconds, the referee waves it off, and you see me start stumbling to my feet. And I'm so young and dumb and in shape, I start arguing with the referee that I'm fine.
I'm good.
I have no recollection. And you can actually see Egan in his corner going, no, he's not good. Referee looks at me, looks at him and goes, fight! And again, I have no recollection of any of this. We end up fighting. So I somehow get through his hands and get in a clinch, and I have double underhooks. I go to throw him, and I land him directly on my chest into mount.
Oh, my God.
Instinctively, I was able to sweep him because he was a striker. And as I sweep him, this is when I have recollection again. So I remember going out and throwing punches, and then I'm in this guy's guard. And I think to myself, oh, I must have gotten rocked, but I'm fine. And at that very moment, just as I come to, he puts a guillotine on me and chokes me out.
Oh, wow.
So I'm probably the only fighter to lose twice in the same fight. I got knocked out and submitted in my very first fight. Not one of my proudest moments.
Wow.
But yeah, I fought. We did all of that, and then later on in life, I'm 46 years old. I started my stunt career. I do stunts for Hollywood movies. We did Jurassic Park and the new King Kong. I work on Hawaii Five-0 often.
Yeah.
It's what I do now for fun.
Oh,
so
boy.
in telling these stories about my fighting career, the kind of talk around set is that I'm tougher than I am talented. Yeah. So if they need someone to like run and jump and fly, we'll get like the 23-year-old stuntmen. They like have a hard fall that everyone's going, I don't want to do that. Get T.Jay. T.Jay to do that.
Wow. That's amazing.
I still train 3 or 4 days a week, mostly grappling, very little stand-up, but still in love with the martial arts and believe that I can still make a difference in some of the young guys' lives that I train with. I wait till they get tired before I beat them up now.
Right.
But I still do all right.
Oh, that's good. So you will be and will always be a fan. You started off as and will always be a fan of.
Absolutely, yes. And again, I see it much different. I mean, I think I'm the typical casual fan nowadays. I mean, there was a day when I knew everything about every fighter. Now I look for the great fights that I want to watch. I'll watch those. I still, fortunately, being, in the 90s, it was such a small group of people, and the pressure we were under from the government, we created a circle of people. No one was in it for the money back then. Everyone was in it for the love of the sport. So there's an inner circle of MMA people around the UFC, Scott Coker and Bellator, Dana White. Dana White would come to every Super Bowl. I'd get him a room at the Sheraton, and I'd go to every UFC, and he'd get me a room at wherever the UFC was at the time. But I'm fortunate enough to still. I went to the Robbie Lawler Carlos Condit fight.
Oh, boy.
I just came back from the spectacular Kimbo versus Dada fight in Houston, and I get well taken care of when I'm there. So it is as a casual fan, I have a little different experience than maybe the casual fan does, but I still love the sport. I always will. There isn't a day that goes by that I'm not on my phone on the underground forum or watching the trash talk between Conor McGregor and whoever he's fighting.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so now this is, I'm sure, everybody's favorite part of this show is I wanted you to talk about some of the guys that you remember bringing in the beginning when they were green and them moving on and doing other things and becoming champs for other shows.
Well, it happened early on, and I guess I'll have to take some credit for kind of knowing how to pick talent, but a lot of it is the networking. If there are any young promoters, it's the networking with the managers and the school owners around. So I don't know that I could have looked at someone in a gym and said, that's the guy, but I could become friends with someone that would say, this is the guy you have to get. So early on, it was Vitor Belfort. His very first fight was for us.
Wow.
And he was 17 years old when we started scouting him, 18 years old when he fought. And it was clear how good he was going to be. Again, Frank Shamrock, his first MMA fight.
I remember Frank Shamrock
was in Hawaii. Josh Barnett fought his first tournament. He was the first heavyweight champion. There was a heavyweight tournament that had Josh Barnett, Heath Herring, Rico Rodriguez, John Marsh, Travis Fulton. It ended up being all 8 guys. Ended up in the UFC and becoming something. Did tournaments that Tim Sylvia won. Tim Sylvia came up out of Super Brawl. We've had, very early on, Pat Miletich was in one of our first tournaments. He was in Super Brawl 3. Rich Franklin has fought for us. Matt Hughes has fought for us. It really kind of goes on and on and on. So if there's something I can be proud of is that I was able to network and find the young talent and bring it up. Mayhem Miller is a great example of how things can happen kind of out of your control. And also talking about promoting and this honesty, this bending the truth, not lying. Egan Inoue, who of course, I don't know if I can take credit for finding him because he was already here, but was our biggest star. And at the time, he finally got beat. I think he was 12-0 and got beat by Masanori Suda.
Yeah.
And he was my meal ticket. I had to find him a win in his next fight. Mm-hmm. On that fight that Suda beat Egan, there was an 8-man, 185-pound tournament that was won by Dennis Kang. There was a young kid by the name of Jason Miller that in his first fight went for a heel hook. I forget who he was fighting, but got pounded horrendously as he was going for this heel hook and took this beating and ended up winning by heel hook, but being so beat up that he couldn't go on.
Wow.
He was just a grappler. His stand-up was horrible. And he was the perfect opponent for Egan Inoue because Egan wasn't the greatest stand-up fighter, but he was one of the greatest grapplers in the world. Yeah. So he wasn't dangerous, and I called Jason Miller, and I said, hey, this is a deal. You're coming out as my opponent. I don't think you can beat him. You know, a lot of guys would call up and say, no, Egan's over the hill. You know,
yeah.
I brought him in to lose. Yeah. He told me, F you, I'm going to come in and I remember him saying, I'm going to throw a wrench in your cogs. And he comes in and ends up beating Egan. And I quickly now have to kind of tread water and spin the whole thing.
Yeah.
And we create one of the greatest stories in Super Brawl Icon Sport history is creating Jason Miller. With his help, his great personality.
Yeah.
But we created the storyline of him coming and beating up Hawaiians over and over and over. And then turning him from that heel. There was one poster that I promoted him as the most dangerous Howley since Captain Cook. That was on the poster.
I remember that.
And he'd come out, and I would get two hot local girls to come out with him as he came out to the stage, just absolutely hated. But then we ended up spinning him because his personality was so good, so charismatic, to being a hero here.
Yeah.
That the Howley boy can scrap.
Yeah.
That was the very beginning of it, the Howley boy can scrap talk. So we've had some talent come through Hawaii. Again, it was a day I'm not sure if we'll ever see it again, but it was an epic time, and we were able to find some great talent.
Oh no, yeah, totally, and that's what, you know, I guess one of the reasons why I really wanted to have you here and talking is because, you know, there's a lot of fans now, a lot of people who watch like the UFCs and the Bellators, but they don't realize that, you know, a lot of the champions that are there today had their starts here in Hawaii, you know, and fought in your shows, you know. So I as a fan, I want to thank you so much for everything that you did. You put in a lot of time and effort and spent a lot of money.
Well, I appreciate it. I think the state of MMA in Hawaii is different than it was, but look who's coming out. Look at Max Holloway. Look at Yancy Medeiros. We're still turning out. I mean, this is a warrior culture that's turning out some great athletes. I would like to see a better job done promoting these guys as they're coming up. Did anyone know who Max Holloway was before he went to UFC or Yancy Medeiros? Other than like the really inner circle people, I think there's stories that can be told. For this next generation coming up, and
totally.
I hope someone can do it.
And that's where, you know, for me, you know, I see the big value in what you bring to the table. You know, like I mentioned earlier, I mean, you know, you were the Barker, you were the guy who created the brands. You know, when we didn't even know what branding was, you were doing it. You know, and you were showing us how, you know, it was to be done. And like you said with Jason Miller, I remember you bringing him out and everybody in Hawaii hating this guy. I mean, absolutely hating him with every inch of their body. And then turning it around to where everybody started to love this guy. And till today, I have not seen that replicated in any sport or media. Nobody has been able to. It's
probably what I'm most proud of if you talk about creating storylines. And we talked about it all the time. We wanted storylines.
Yeah.
Every fight was, what's the storyline for this fight? Yeah. And it may have been a group of fights that we created a storyline or a main event that we created a storyline.
Building it, right, yeah.
But if you talk about storylines, that's the one I'm most proud of, that I had something to do with. Couldn't have done it without Jason. Jason, and God rest his soul, because he's not who he was anymore. But at the time, I mean, this Howley kid from Atlanta couldn't walk through the mall without getting accosted,
Right.
molested,
Yeah.
so popular.
Yeah.
But one beat up from the guys, chased by the girls. People in their 70s knew who Mayhem Miller was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? At that time, it wasn't the MMA fans that knew about Mayhem.
It was the general public.
The general
Everybody.
public
Yeah.
knew.
And that's what I'm saying is that, me being a fan, I'm not only a fan of the sport, I'm a fan of the buildup, of how you put things together. And I watch every business do that, and you've done some amazing things. So 2 questions I got for you
Yes.
at the end of this. One is, what was your favorite fight to promote?
I don't know that I have. If there were so many. I mean, I loved every one of them.
I know it's like kids, like having kids.
Well,
yeah.
it is, and I won't answer that question, but I will say from very Super Brawl 1, all the hard work I did, at the very beginning of the show, I'd have my headphones on, getting things together. I mean, again, there's a lot that goes on in putting a big show like that. From the minute the first bell rang, my headphones came off, and I delegated from that point. I watched every single fight on every single card without interruption.
Wow.
For the entire time, because I was a fan,
Yeah.
and I wanted a front row seat.
Wow. Okay, that sounds great. Next question is this. So, like you alluded to it and you talked earlier about Scott Coker and Dana White.
Yes.
Right. So, how do you think things are going right now with what they're doing?
Well, I love what Scott's doing. I mean, he knows. I mean, he's putting on. He even calls his big events tentpole events, and he doesn't want to call them circuses. And again, I don't know this, but I know Scott very well, and we spent a lot of time together. And I haven't talked about this, but I think he particularly calls them tentpole events to bring the image up of the circus coming to town. So when they do these ridiculous fights, and I'll call them ridiculous, with Kimbo Slice and Dada and Ken Shamrock and Hoist, I get it. Because we want to bring eyeballs, and then if you do a good enough job of developing the talent underneath, then you're doing your job right. And they did 3.5 million viewers for the Kimbo fight.
No, exactly, and that's the thing you
so
can't
they're doing
complain
something
about.
right. UFC is a juggernaut that you're not going to knock off the pedestal, and they do what they do. Dana has become good at what he does. I think he had a very kind of steep learning curve from early on. But he's if I'm the godfather of MMA in Hawaii, he's the godfather of MMA worldwide. So you've got to give him respect for that. But if you want to ask me who I think promotes better, I'll take Scott Coker.
Wow. That's great. That's awesome. That's from a promotion standpoint. So
Sure.
Yeah, it's great. So hey, I just want to thank you so much for coming out again, spending time and sharing some of the great stories with us.
Anytime.
All right.
I might have 1 or 2 stories left if we ever need one.
All right. So hey, who knows? We might definitely get this guy back on again because I'm sure he could do a whole year of shows with what he's got going on. But thank you so much again for coming out. And for all you guys out there, I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you had time to listen and digest everything that we talked about and discussed. And I'll tell you what, man, we've always talked about Hawaii being the hotbed of MMA. And, here we are. We got documentation, stories and whatnot of some of the things that have happened for those of you who are new fans and people that are becoming fans. And, thank you so much, guys, for watching Real Talk TV. And we look forward to seeing you folks on the next episode. So thank you very much. Aloha.